Okay, in this video I'll be showing you how to install LTspice and set it up to make use of a set of circuit symbols that I've developed for my own use in making schematics and doing simulations. My own sense is that people who make simulators, software that and schematic capture programs tend to not have good sense of proportion in what it takes to make a schematic look good. So the symbols that come with LTspice are kind of awful looking. And so over the years I've developed a set of symbols that I like for making schematics. And so when I first started using LTspice, I made a set of symbols that kind of look like the ones that I typically use in making illustrations for papers and handouts and things like that. So I'll be showing you how to install LTspice and set it up to use those symbols. The first thing to do, if you don't already have LTspice installed, is to just Google LTspice and find the page at linear.com that you can get the download from. So there's two different versions. There's a Windows version and then there's a newer Mac OS X version. I personally don't like the interface with the the user interface for the Mac OS X version. It's quite different from the Windows version. And even though I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Mac user for a long time, I tend to prefer the Windows version. So when I have used LTspice under Mac OS X, I've actually used it under Wine, and it actually works quite reasonably well under Wine. So most of you are running Windows, so I'll basically show you how to deal with the Windows version in this video. So just download the installer. It's not a very large file, so it should take a fairly short amount of time. And when it finishes, then just run it. Here we go. Accept the license agreement and install it in the default directory. It'll take a little while to unzip all of the library files that comes with it. Once you've got that done, it comes up, and I'm going to minimize that for the time being. Second thing to do is to go over to the course website, and if you go to the labs section, you'll find a new link to LTspice files, and you download that zip archive. Go over to your downloads folder, and I'm going to extract the files here. They are in a folder called LTspice, and you can put this this folder wherever is convenient. I tend to like to put it in my documents folder. Inside this folder you'll find four things. One is a subdirectory called CKTSYM, and this is actually a directory that contains all of the LTspice symbol files for the devices that we'll be using in this class and that I commonly use. And in order to actually have LTspice be able to find these conveniently when you place a component, what I would recommend doing is basically cut this and paste it into the LTspice hierarchy. You'll find LTspice under C, Program Files, x86, LTC, LTspice 4, and you want to put this under lib, sim, and then paste it here. You're going to need administrator privileges to paste a folder into this directory, but once you do that, there it is. And now if you go to LTspice and you go File, New Schematic, so you have a new schematic here, this little tool up here that looks like an AND gate is basically place a component. So if you do that, you'll find this component browser here, and you can go into this CKTSYM and you can find all of the symbols that I've created for our use in this class. And basically things like voltage sources, resistors, transistors, op amps, capacitors, and that kind of thing. Okay, So if you want to place, let's say, a capacitor, you just click on OK, and there's your capacitor. Okay. So I'll be showing you how to actually drive the simulator and run some simulations in a little bit in a separate video. The rest of the stuff that was in the zip archive are basically 2 sample schematic files that kind of go along with some of the things you did in Lab 2 and 3, and ENGR 2420.sub, which is just a text file. And inside this text file are basically model parameters for the types of devices that, that we will be using in the lab this semester. So here, for instance, are some model parameters for an NPN bipolar transistor that match up with the MAT14 transistor arrays. And the MOSFET arrays that we'll be using are ALD 1106 and 1107. And so those are model parameters that make the MOSFET model kind of tuned up to have characteristics like those of those transistor arrays. And then there's some sub-circuit definitions that hook into some of the symbols that we use to do things like simulate at least the small signal behavior of an LMC 6484 or 6482 op-amp and things like that. These are 3-terminal NMOS and PMOS transistors that have the sort of default the substrate connection or bulk connection like we use in the class notes. So what I do is I typically will copy that file into each subdirectory that I have a new project in, and you wind up having to include that in your schematic, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video. So I guess I should also say, you know, if you'd rather use the built-in symbols that come with LTspice, that's totally fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you do need to make use of the model parameters that we've supplied for the MAT14s, for instance, for PostLab 4, and you will need to use the ALD 1106 and 1107 model parameters that we've supplied for subsequent PostLabs. We'll be doing some simulations of CMOS circuits. So even if you do use the MOSFET symbols and BJT symbols and things like that you'll find in LTspice by default, you do need to hook them up appropriately to the models that you'll find in this ENGR 2420.sub file. So that's it for this video. I'll be posting another video soon that has kind of a tutorial on how to drive LTspice and some basic things about it.